let's talk about breeding and what faults that we are willing to live with, in
Ooh,
terms
that's a good topic. Yeah,
of,
absolutely. Yeah, Joe, you go ahead and then I'll kind of add
so
in.
a lot of, as I said, rabbits that tend to be really deep, peak really far back, and, they'll have, faults like they'll have a tendency to have a little bit of extra length in the shoulder. Some of them will tend to be a little bit narrow at the base. Some of them will have a gap between the loin and the hip. Little tendencies like this. People, there, a lot of breeders are like absolute, like nope,
Yeah.
sir, I'm gonna call it.
The biggest one I always hear people say is a narrow lower hindquarter, like the base. Like people call off that instantly. But this is kind of, I don't know how you can really say this, but as the rabbit ages, they're going to grow into that so much more. They might be super narrow when they're a baby, but as they get older and hit that 8 to 10 month window, they fill in so much with their hindquarter and their loin. Like that's one of the last things I look at unless they're super undercut as well as being narrow at the base.
I think I think we all as exhibitors and breeders need to understand what the degree of that fault is. A severe, long shoulder, narrow shoulder, they're going to have a tendency of producing more of those. Slightly longer on a brood doe that's, super deep. You keep her for her attributes, how deep she is over the hip, how full she is into the back end, how dense she is, for example. If she's got a fault, other people say, yeah, the back legs are a little bit too close together. I don't like the lack of fullness. Well, you better have a buck at home who's got a really wide set, hind legs on him, because you can fix those things. A lot of people are absolute cullers, meaning like they'll focus on one trait, little pinch, cull, little long in the shoulder, cull. I think the most common fault that people cull on are shoulders because it's the easiest one to see. Like anybody can understand what a long shoulder is, but how long of a shoulder are we talking about? If it's slightly long in the shoulder, I'd keep it. I'd breed with it. Not, preferably not a buck. My bucks are short shouldered, full in the hindquarter. They're just not as deep as my does are.
Right. And that's why with that shoulder and lengthened shoulder, that's why it's so important to have not only that straight spine, but the steep spine.
Yeah, correct.
Why do you keep bucks like that, but does you want to be the other way?
Well, my reason is, I have plenty of short does here too, but these longer does that peak, a little further back, the ones I have are broody, as you say, the genetic normal ones. They'll give you a lot of babies. You'll get like 6 or 7 in in the litter. The longer ones tend to have more babies, and I've kept longer does with different breeds, and it's worked for me before.
I also think it's a lot harder to get a good buck than a good doe. I don't know, just based on my experience. So even having better bucks and those really special unicorn bucks is like key, really. But like I said, you have to make them. It's hard to make. So like Joe said, with having those longer does at first, that set them up for success to be able to create that correct top line.